Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today, we have back with us Eunicia Peret, who's the CEO of the Empowered Financial Planner, and we'll be talking about how to optimize a wealth building portfolio. Eunicia, welcome back to the program.
So good to be here with you, Mike.
You know, last time we got to know you and the way you serve your clients and your deliverables to them regarding maybe advice on taxes and things like that. And that was really powerful. And today we want to go a little bit deeper on a wealth building portfolio, which makes me think the first question, let's define it. What is a wealth building portfolio?
You know, it's funny because somebody asked me just the other day, they said, when you say wealth building, optimize, like decipher it for me at the next level. And the easiest way to put it is we want the money to be working harder for us versus us working harder for the money. And that's kind of the I would say the epitome of what optimizing our portfolio, optimizing our money truly means. The other thing, though, is also means having visibility into the end-to-end options that we have available at our disposal. Investing also in ways that are aligned to who we are as individuals. It's not enough for someone to just tell us, oh, you should invest here, you should do that, open this account, open that account. At the end of the day, it truly what it boils down to is the risk. How do we minimize the risk? How do we even protect the money? And this is very, very timely on the heels of two banks having just gone under. And people asking, is it 2008 all over again? How bad is it going to get? We don't know. But that's when we're talking about optimizing wealth, optimizing money it's not having to have the worries, is making that money actually work for us versus in some cases, potentially against us.
Yeah, and I want to go deeper on optimizing and risks, but also I love breaking down words. And so wealth building portfolio. So obviously you want a portfolio of your investments to be building wealth. And it makes me think of like, what's the opposite of that? Well, you could be so scared that you take all of your money, put it in a metal box in a safe and dig a hole in the ground. And at least you're not going to lose money, but you're not going to gain even the interest, that the safest investment could have. So a wealth building portfolio is a strategy to make sure those funds are growing as safely as possible. So I like that explanation that you gave because we want to optimize that. What are some of the things that people need to keep in mind when we want to safely and calculatingly optimize?
Well, one of the things that one of the options and the things that people need to be thinking about is this notion of what don't we know? What don't we know when it comes to having that peace of mind, when it comes to stopping financial leakage? And I'll tell you just a brief story of something that happened just 2 days ago. I was at an executive meeting here locally, and one of the largest economic development gurus, a gentleman that has so much experience with really everything across the board, very, very heavy into real estate. He found out what we do as a firm, and he said, do you mean to tell me that there is a way where I can work just as hard as I have for all these years and I don't have to pay 50% of what I make back to the government? I said, yes, there is. He said, how in the world is that possible? I said, well, most of our clients, even those that are in the multi-million dollar earning positions, are able to strategically minimize their tax exposure, not because they're avoiding taxes, but because there are strategies that fit to actually help them grow their businesses, to help them do more with what they're already earning. And as a result, they're minimizing their tax exposure. And he said, so-and-so company down the street, a CPA firm, they're my CPA currently, and they've never, ever brought anything like this to my attention. And again, keep in mind, we're talking about tens of thousands of millions of dollars. And I said, well, let me ask you this. Have you ever had the conversation with your CPA firm, or have they ever asked you questions about some of the things that I just mentioned, which would then be interpreted, it would lead to strategic tax planning? He said, no, they just do my taxes.
Yeah.
And I thought a conversation that was really meant not to go anywhere because frankly, he has so much expertise, and he's the white hair and the everything shows that this gentleman has gone through life. And I thought if I could just learn from him, And here it was the other way around. So it's that financial leakage comes in so many forms, and that's one of the biggest reasons why people should understand their options. One of the biggest risks that people have, it's money that comes in that gets truly just flushed down. And who wants to flush
to me,
money
that's
down?
the biggest aha from what you just said there. I'm envisioning this person. He said something to the effect of, I can keep working as hard as I've been working. So he is grinding, working, right? Doing his deal. And he's bringing money in. At the end of the year, he's seeing, wow, my tax liability is X. And sure, it would have been nice to not have to pay 50%. So he's not having to now work harder to have more money in his back pocket. He's working the same amount, but putting strategic things in place so that you can legally, ethically make sure that you're optimizing taxes and keep more of your money. To me, that is the ultimate definition of optimization. We talked about taxes a second ago in last conversation we had, but now we're talking about it in optimizing a wealth building portfolio. Because I'll bet you could say to that person, hey, if I could show you how to save this amount of money, we now can turn that amount into wealth building and now throwing grease on the fire for him growing his retirement.
So true. So true. Another thing that I want folks to think about is oftentimes this is a big time, and it's funny because it aligns to our tax conversation, but the other big risk that we see is people saying something along the lines of, I have a him, I have a her, I have a team, somebody's doing it for me. I just want somebody to invest it for me. And what we're seeing is that it's those same people that have the biggest questions, or perhaps they don't even allow the questions to come up because of the fear that's there. And so the analogy that I have there is for those listening that might be sports enthusiasts, it's the equivalent to making a statement like that and just allowing someone to just do something with your money. Certainly is not optimizing your wealth building portfolio. But what it also does, it puts you in a situation where if you are a sports enthusiast and you have tickets to the All-Star game or whatever the end of the season game, the game that everybody wants to attend, and you just give them to somebody else and you say, can you please go attend this game because I just can't, won't, don't want to, don't have the time, all the reasons that come up, and ask them to enjoy that game. Can you truly vicariously enjoy that game, the benefits of being there in person and experiencing and having a pulse on what's going on with your money and that portfolio of yours? Of course not. So the question in my mind every time I hear that is, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Do you know of everything that you're leaving to chance by doing and saying that?
Now you're not the one, but in that example, you're not the one having to make all the investment financial decisions. You're the one listening to an expert that gives you guidance, and then you're understanding the process, and you're making decisions based on recommendations that feel right based on your goals. But you're not the one out there in the middle of the ocean going, "Well, I hope I'm doing the right thing." So you've got a team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got a team giving you that guidance.
Yes, and you're right on that. Thank you for making that clarification point, because a lot of people will say exactly what you said, right? Oh my God, I'm not the expert. I don't have the expertise. This is not about people having the expertise or them having to geek out on the things that experts do. Yeah. But rather it's understanding what in the world is happening with their money so that they can make more informed decisions, so that they can feel part of that sauce making process. And more importantly, to have the peace of mind and the feeling that they're in control of the money versus somebody's taking care of it. And I'm hoping that as the market might go up or down or sideways, that we're going to be fine. Yeah.
It's almost the difference between do it yourself, DIY, and done for you, which is hands off, good luck, and done with you. So you want the done with you where you're not having to be responsible for all of that, but you're part of the process to understand it, but you know that expert is guiding you in the right direction and you don't need to take responsibility. But like you said, you feel like, okay, I understand what you were meaning there. Makes sense. Go and do that. And then you have that peace of mind without having to go, well, I hope they're doing the right thing, because I'm not part of the process. That's a big part of this wealth building portfolio, is knowing what you want and knowing that person has your back and walking right beside you through it.
And furthermore, to opine on that, it's not even just the person. That's one of the other big risks in the industry is I've got a him or I've got a her. I've got a quote unquote team at such and such investment house. is that truly addressing kind of the complexities of what you are dealing with when it comes to you're a high net worth, you're a high income individual, maybe you inherited a ton of money, ton of assets. Is one person sufficient to address it all? What we found is that it is not. And because the industry is anything but incentivized to bring all the knowledge together, what we found is that in itself is a huge blind spot for individuals. And so we want to make sure that, again, they're in control by understanding how all the pieces come together and being able to see that puzzle being put together for them. But that puzzle doesn't get put together by one person. It gets put together by a strategic team of experts that each address very unique skill sets.
So making sure that you're not the one left to make all the decisions, making sure you've got an expert helping you, and maybe it's not one, it's a team where it's a holistic approach. Any other risks that people need to make sure that they avoid?
I would say those are some big ones. The blind spots are huge, and we talked about some of those. One of the big blind spots, especially when it comes to risk alignment, we're seeing it now. Obviously, a lot of people are asking big questions. Should I pull my money out of the bank? If everybody does that, we will be in the world of trouble. But let's not forget that that's almost what drove 2008 to be even worse than it actually turned out. So the question is, how much do we want to continue to rely on the Fed or on the government to step in and take measures so that as consumers we're protected versus saying, you know what, I need that team of experts. I need that support, because historically, when we're looking backwards, the story might be okay, but do we want an okay portfolio, or do we truly want a portfolio that is exceeding expectations because it checks all of the boxes? Most importantly, it helps us be okay with where we are and with the success that we've gotten versus being left day after day, month after month, year after year with questions that go unanswered. Yeah.
So just like some of the headlines we see all the time, it's like, just like volatility in markets, up, down, and all around. Well, headlines today are going to be bad, and then it's going to get better. And then a few years later, we see that. But just like some of the headlines, maybe some of these banks weren't diversified properly. Who knows? We're not going to get into that. But talk a little bit about, when we're talking about a wealth building portfolio, how does diversification help to provide that safety?
Well, diversification, it's a funny idea, right? Everybody, when they think diversification, we've been preconditioned to think about some pie that has a lot of colors in it. And what I tell individuals is that if all you're looking at is a pie that has a lot of colors in it on one statement, there's probably an issue with your overall diversification, because at that point in time, we're talking about a specific type of a portfolio or a specific type of an asset class. And the reality is that to truly do what the uber wealthy do, it doesn't mean that we have to be uber wealthy. It just means that we need to change our mindset. And so to change our mindset and truly be diversified, we need to understand the impact that specific changes, even legislative changes, can have on our money. I mean, whether it be taxes, whether it be control, whether it be one thing or another. If all of the negativity was to pan out, or half of the negativity of the headlines was to pan out, is our money going to be okay?
Yeah.
Both now as well as the long term. That's a question that most people cannot easily articulate, because they're thinking in their mind, I am seeing this pie, and it has a lot of colors. My advisor tells me I'm diversified, and I trust that. But I don't feel that. So whenever we don't feel it and we have questions, why is it that we keep going back to the same wheel, expecting different results? It meets the definition of an incentive, right? We're banging a hand against the wall and expecting something different is going to come out.
100%. I think a lot of, you mentioned blind spots. And for me, just listening to you speaking, one of the blind spots would be, you get your, let's just say your phone bill or your power bill, and you start looking at all these little line items, sub-line items, like, what in the world are all these fees? And I guess I can't do anything about it. And same with investments. There's fees and commissions and loads and bloat. Talk a little bit about how that impacts clients' portfolios and what you guys do in that realm.
Huge. It's fees, expensive, unnecessary costs inside of how money's managed, portfolio, financial plans, financial products, whatever it is that we want to call them. Obviously, there's always a fee. The problem is those fees, in many, many cases, I would say 80 to 90% of the time that we see are exceptionally bloated. Let me give you a prime example. One of our clients, the very first time we actually worked together, we made one move, one single move. It was what I call the domino effect, and we talked about that last time, right? That one domino effect, because we cut down the bloating inside of that specific financial treatment or strategy, as well as we made a couple of tweaks based on his age, which also further reduced his cost. Between the time that we made the change and the time that he's going to retire, he's going to see an additional accumulation conservatively of somewhere around $970,000. Everything else is the same. Timeline is the same.
That's not
amount of money.
That's not 42 changes. That's just a couple.
That's just a couple. It's a couple changes, but it's a couple of changes that when he saw it, he and his wife, they said, it sounds too good to be true. Can we look at the numbers again? And we looked at the numbers again. And we were able to articulate and demonstrate, which is something that we do with all of our clients to the extent, when it lends itself and we show it to them. Here's, if we increase these dynamics inside of this particular treatment, here's what it's going to do for you. Here's how it can bump up your accumulation, or it can bump it down because of those excessive fees and costs. Which one would you like? Yeah. And then we even encourage them, hey, if you go out there on the street, we guarantee you that just about anywhere you go, these are kind of the percentages and the numbers that you're going to come up at. How do you know? Well, because we've seen hundreds and thousands of those cases come across our desk. And we know that excessive fees can not only bloat our so-called portfolio, but they can work severely against us in the long term.
Same way as taxes, like we talked about before, overall taxes. And that's a consideration to make sure when you're structuring properly with proper diversification, that wealth building portfolio, to make sure you're, giving an eye to that tax implication, because you want to make sure that, you're doing all of those pieces correctly in putting that portfolio together.
Correct. So true. So true.
Well, I tell you what, I think that these are some really powerful thoughts to keep in mind for that wealth building portfolio. Any final thoughts on this, and what's the best way someone can learn more?
The best way for someone to learn more is to follow us on our website at www.empoweredfinancialplanner.com. And if they want to learn more about the tips and tricks and some of the strategies, I encourage them to get the 5 financial pitfalls as a short checklist that is going to make a difference in the way they think about wealth building efforts, and how they too can make a huge difference. That can be found at www.empoweredfinancialplanner.com/pitfalls.
Excellent. Well, Eunicia, as always, it's great talking with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mike.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.